My name is Mary Lou Schuster, and I'm a literacy specialist in Maine. Prior to being a literacy specialist, I taught kindergarten for 22 years. And as I taught phonological awareness skills, and most specifically syllable counting and blending, one of the things that always bothered me is that all the teachers' manuals and books said to teach kids to count syllables by clapping. Well, one of the problems I have with this, especially with assessment, is that when you're asking kids to clap the number of syllables, you're asking them to do two cognitive tasks. One is to segment the syllables by clapping, and two is to ask them to use their short-term memory and retrieval to then go back and remember how many times they clapped. This can really muddy up the assessment. And really, let's think about our LD kids too. It might be easy when it's a two-syllable word, such as baseball, baseball. Most kids can remember they clap 2 times. But let's think about a word that's 4 syllables long, like motorcycle, motorcycle. Not quite so easy. And then if you're using it for assessment, do they not know how to count syllables? Or are they not able to retrieve the fact that it was 4 syllables that they clapped? So I had developed a much easier way for kids to count syllables and segment syllables, and it's by using their arm. Their arm is never going to go away, it's always going to be there. And they can segment the word and then go back and count the syllables on their arm quite easily. So this is what I do. The first lesson is simply to teach them how to use their arm. That's the foundational skill for this task. So many times we neglect to make sure that kids understand the foundational task for the activity, and then we say they can't do it. Oh, they can't count syllables. But we didn't make sure they could do the foundational task first. So we're kind of missing the whole boat. So when I teach kids how to count syllables on their arm, the first thing they have to be able to do is know where the splits come for the counting. So the first split, I tell them the counting is going to come where their arm can bend, and only where their arm can bend. So number 1 is at the wrist. The next place your arm can bend is at the elbow. So that's 2. The next place your arm can bend is at your shoulder. So that's 3. Then we go to the top of our head for 4, and down the other side of our arm, if necessary, for some of those really long words. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and wow, if you really have a long word, 7. You have to make sure they can do that. You have to make sure every single kid can do that with you. If you're lucky enough to have an aide in the room, a reading associate, parent volunteer, have them watch you do the lesson, then they can take a small group of maybe 1 or 2 or 3 kids that maybe didn't get it the first time around and make sure they can do it before you move on to doing any word counting of syllables. So this worked great for me for a couple of years. So how does it work with words? Well, let's do that word baseball. Baseball. Blend it, baseball. Make sure the kids always blend it afterwards. You don't want to leave them hanging with pieces of words. And make sure they're going up, because the word ends here. Don't have them going down. Baseball. Blend it, baseball. So I always have the kids say the word baseball. What's the word, kids? Baseball. Let's count the syllables in baseball. Baseball. Blend it, baseball. Now a lot of kids, after they've done this for a little while, they know automatically that the elbow is 2 syllables. So when I ask them how many syllables in baseball, they'll say 2. But for those kids that can't do it, all they have to do is go back and count. 1, 2. 2 syllables in baseball. Let's take that harder word, motorcycle. What's the word? Motorcycle. Let's count the syllables. Motorcycle. Blend it. Start at the wrist. Motorcycle. They love going up to their head like that. Some kids will know. 4 at the top. Others might have to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 syllables in motorcycle. So this strategy worked great for me for a couple of years, no problems. Lovely. Then you know you always get that class, and it wasn't working. I went to do the foundational lesson of just teaching them where the splits came, and more than half my class could not get that first lesson. They could not get where the splits were. They were doing stuff like this. Even though I was saying, can you bend your arm there? Right here in the middle, between your wrist and your elbow? Bend it for me. Show me you can bend it. Of course they couldn't, but they still couldn't put their hands where the syllable bending would be. I knew I couldn't move on to words. They couldn't count syllables if they couldn't put their hands where the syllable counting came. So I stopped that day, went home, and I thought, what am I going to do? I have to do a different type of lesson to teach them this foundational skill, or the next lessons can't happen. Well, I had even longer hair than I have right now, so I had a lot of hair scrunchies and headbands at home. I went to school the next day and brought out the headbands. Whoops. Came back, sat down, and I said, okay, boys and girls, we need to learn this lesson. We had a little trouble yesterday. So this first one is actually like a cuff from a sock. It's a little bit smaller. And I put it on my wrist. I said, boys and girls, look, see? This is where number 1 counting comes for syllables. This is your wrist. Your wrist can bend. Everybody bend your wrist. And now they had a visual. They could see it on my arm. The next thing I took was a hair scrunchie. Make a ponytail with. Now, men, if you're listening, you can find these from your wives or girlfriends, or go out to the store and buy them at Rite Aid or somewhere. Or those women who have short hair. That one went on my elbow. Boys and girls, bend your elbow. Here's number 2. The next one was a bit bigger. Headband. That one went up on my shoulder. So now they had a visual. They could see where those bends came. And we did it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the majority of the kids got it. There were still a couple of kids that didn't. And I had a parent volunteer in the room, and she actually took those kids into a small group, and she put these visuals on them. So they actually had one on their wrist, one on their elbow, one up on their shoulder, so that they could see them themselves. And then we had everybody on board, so we were able to do it. And it works like a dream. And I allow them to use their arm during assessment. I don't think you take something away from a child when you're assessing them that you've let them use all along. One word of caution. I use tapping out with fingers for phoneme segmentation. So if I'm doing the word cat, which comes after syllable counting, they would go k, at, blended, cat. Don't use these 2 tools interchangeably. It will confuse the children. So keep syllable counting on your arm and phoneme tapping on your fingers. The other thing is you need to teach them 1-syllable words, because they'll want to stretch out a 1-syllable word. They'll take a word like dog. If I say, how many syllables in dog? The first time you do it, they'll go something like this, dog. If you don't do 1-syllable words, they'll think every word has to be more than 1 syllable. So teach them dog. Probably a better way to start is with names, because they hear names, they understand names. Names are one of the best things to teach young children about letter names, letter sounds, phonological awareness, and use the names of the kids in class. So if you have a Pammy, Pammy, blend it, Pammy. Doug, Doug, 1 syllable, Doug. So that when you move on to ball, ball, and they won't be doing ball. So that's what I have for you here today. Everything I talked about with syllable counting on your arm, I also wrote up as a PDF, and it's in the materials that are available for you with this resource. I have also included word lists for deletion and substitution, a lot of fun games to play with syllable counting and blending, and a short, quick assessment for syllables at the very end. So I hope you enjoy this, and if you have any questions, you can always get in touch with me. Thanks a lot. Bye.